What if I told you one single function in Power BI could replace 5 different Excel formulas? SumIfs, CountIfs, AverageIfs, MaxIfs, and MinIfs, all combined into just one word: calculate. Intrigued? Let's break it down Dex style. Hi everyone, I'm Sarvagya and welcome back to another episode of Dex Simplified, where we learn Power BI the way Excel lovers understand it best. Today's focus is on one of the most powerful functions in Dex called calculate. And the best part, if you have ever used formulas like SumIfs or AverageIfs in Excel, you're already halfway there. Let's take a moment to compare Excel SumIfs with Power BI's calculate function. In Excel, when we use SumIfs, we typically provide three parameters. The first parameter is sum range, the column that contains the values we want to add up. The next parameter is criteria range, the column where we apply the condition. And the third parameter is criteria, the value we are using to filter. Here's a quick example. Let's say we want to find the total sales amount for the category furniture from this dataset. Now, this data is already formatted as an Excel table, which means we can refer to both the table name and the column name directly in our formula. Very similar to how things work in Power BI. In this case, the table is named data. We'll use the SumIfs function to get our answer. So let's break it down step by step. We begin by typing SumIfs. The first parameter is the sum range. That's the column name from which we want to total the values. In our case, it's the total sales column. So we write data, that is our table name, and in the square brackets, we'll select the total sales. The second parameter is the criteria range, the column where we will apply a condition. Since we want the sales for the furniture category, the criteria range will be the category column. Again, same process, the table name, and then inside the square bracket, the column name, that is data inside the square bracket category. The third parameter is the criteria itself, the value we are filtering for. So we'll type furniture inside the double quotation marks. Here's what's happening behind the scenes. We are summing values from the total sales column, but only where the category equals furniture. That's it. The result gives us the total sales amount for the furniture using a structured table references in Excel. Now let's translate this into Power BI using calculate function. Calculate has two parts, expression and filters. In expression, we have to provide what kind of aggregation we want to do, sum, average, max, min or count, and on which column. In filters, we define the column where we want to apply the filter and the criteria for filtering. Here's a quick example. Just like we did in Excel, let's now calculate the total sales amount for the category furniture, but this time using Power BI. In our Power BI data model, the table name is also data. So let's start by creating a new measure. To do that, right click on any field in the fields pane and then select new measure. This opens up the formula bar at the top. Now let's rename our measure in furniture underscore sales. Now we will write our calculate function step by step. The calculate function has two parts, the expression and the filter. The expression defines what you want to calculate and the filter defines the condition under which the calculation happens. So let's begin with the expression. Since we want to find the total sales, we will use the sum function. We will type sum and now inside the sum, it is asking for us to provide a column name, just like Excel's SumIfs did for the sum range. To refer to the column name, we need to type the table name first, followed by the column name in square brackets. So here it will be like data, that is our table name, and inside the square brackets, we will write total sales as our column name. Now we close the sum function with a bracket, and next we add the filter condition. In Excel, if you remember, we had two separate parameters, one for the criteria range and one for the criteria. In Power BI's calculate, we combine both into a single logical expression, something like this. First, we will provide the criteria range, and in our case, it is category column, and then the criteria, which is furniture. We will start with data, and in the square brackets, we will select category, and after equal symbol, we will write furniture in double quotation marks. Now, if we hit enter, and you will see the new measure appear in the fields pane. You can now drag this measure onto your canvas, and as you will notice, just like in Excel, it gives you the total sales for the furniture category. Same logic and same output, just written in Power BI's Dex language. So in both cases, the logic is the same. We define what we want to calculate and we specify conditions to filter the data before performing that calculation. The main difference is just in the structure. But at its core, SumIfs and calculate are doing the same job. That's why if you have ever used SumIfs in Excel, you're already halfway to mastering calculate in Power BI. Now you might be thinking, wait a minute, can't I get the same result just by dragging the total sales field onto the canvas and then dragging the category field into the filters pane area and selecting furniture there? Absolutely, you will see the total sales for furniture on your visual. But here's the catch. The value you get using the filters pane is static. It only changes the visual. The value you get using calculate is dynamic. You can use it in other measures, calculations and comparison. Let me show you what I mean. Now imagine this scenario. You want to calculate the percentage of total sales that came from India. To do this, we need to divide the India sales amount by the total sales amount. Now, if you simply use the filters pane to filter the visual by India, you would be able to see the number, but you wouldn't be able to use that number in another calculation or measure. So what do we do instead? We start by creating a dynamic measure for India sales using calculate. Let's start by inserting a new measure and we will name it as India underscore sales. Then we will write our calculate function like this. Inside the expression, we will start with sum and select the total sales column. And now in the filter, we will first select our criteria range. And in this case, it will be the country column. And for the criteria, it will be India. Now, when we drag this measure onto the canvas, it will show the total sales amount for India. And unlike a visual filter, this value can now be used inside other calculations. So now let's create a new measure to calculate the percentage of total sales from India. Let's now insert another measure and we will name this one as India percentage. To calculate this, we will use the divide function, a safe and reliable way to divide or to handle the division in DEX. Before we start working with the parameters, here's something important to notice. You can only pass measures or expressions into functions like divide. That's why the number from the visual filter pane wouldn't work, but a DEX measure created using calculate does. Here's how we write it. In the numerator, we are using our measure India underscore sales, and in the denominator, we are summing the total sales amount with the help of sum function. Now, the measure has been created. Let's drag this measure onto the canvas and convert this India percentage measure into a percentage to get a better insight. So now you have a dynamic reusable measure that tells us what percentage of your total sales came from India. This is something you can't do with just filters on a visual. It's a kind of flexibility and control you only get by writing measures with calculate. And that right there is the power of DEX over drag and drop. So the next time you are tempted to use a visual filter in Power BI, ask yourself, do I just want to see the number or do I want to use the number? Because that's the real difference. With calculate, you're not just building reports, you are building logic. You're not just applying filters, you're creating dynamic and reusable insights. And you're not just viewing data, you're controlling it. If Excel functions were like power tools, then calculate is the Swiss Army knife of Power BI. One function that adapts to almost everything. So keep practicing, keep experimenting, and remember, if you understand Excel, you're already halfway to mastering DEX. I hope this simplified your learning today. If it did, drop a like, comment your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe for more Excel to DEX clarity in the next episode of DEX Simplified. Thanks for watching, and as always, stay curious and stay in control of your data.